I do create these events so that they're going to be useful for both people, even for people who are clients and are already working with me. So, hey guys, I'm curious, right? Who liked the inner smile? Who feels like it's something they want to keep doing in their life? Yeah. Can you give me a 3 in the chat if you're digging that inner smile and it's something you want to keep doing? Yeah, I love the inner smile. I think it's really oh, I'm gonna have to stop the share for a second. Sorry. I feel like it's so powerful. Really powerful exercise. Just doing that on its own. Just doing that exercise on its own is really, really profound without even doing, you know, other things. So it's like a first step, yeah. So let's get now into the slideshow. Okay, so, all right, okay. The orgasmic blueprint. I don't know why I called it that. I just did. Okay, so we have our secret 3 here, which is orgasmic energy is the most powerful form of spiritual energy, but it may not be what you think it is. That's what you were just going to ask me, Angelina, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's right there. Let's see if I cover it. And if not, let's talk about it after. So, okay. It's a superfood for body and soul. So this powerful energy creates life. Once it's created, we tend to try to forget about it and pretend it's superfluous. So our culture tells us to kind of get it in a box and stick it away from the rest of our lives in so many different ways, you know, almost like if we incorporate it into our lives, we're going to become these crazy, you know, sex crazed rapists and sex offenders and so on. So this is what we're told, and this is what we're programmed, you know. So and by pretending it's superfluous, we're actually stopping ourselves from really accessing this really important energy. And this is actually the divine source creative energy that we're literally made out of. It's so important. So this is something, an advanced Taoist practice, sexual practice that they're engaging in there with energy. So this is just because we don't understand it. So we've been told for so many years that sex is dirty, and is quite, you know, because even when you look at people that are doing so-called sexual liberation, and they still talk about sexual things being dirty and being naughty, and, oh, I want to have a dirty whatever with you, and so on. And I really feel like when we use these words, the words are powerful. You know, when we call sex things like dirty and naughty, it's kind of like we're creating a program around it, you know, because the words are, what do they say? The words are like, each word is a powerful oath, you know, it's a powerful act of magic when we speak words. So there's a whole science to orgasmic energy that goes way beyond what modern sexologists can imagine, even those who think they are so sex positive. Unless you look back at these ancient orgasmic secrets, you will not find the power of this energy, which goes way beyond amazing pleasure, orgasms, intimacy, connection, and love. And there's something within our soul that calls us to have sex, you know, and we're kind of like, you know, we're kind of like treating this like it's a dirty thing, you know, but I feel like the more that someone is like desperate and needy for sex, it's like they're desperate and needy for something spiritual, you know, and sex can bring us something spiritual, but not in the way that most people have it. And actually a big part of the problem is that we as women are supposed to be the initiates and priestesses to initiate a man into his spiritual experience of sexuality. But one of the things is we've lost the knowledge of how to do that. But secondly, also, it works quite well when people are like pair bonding for life. When you have all these random guys looking for one night stands with like, women who've done tantra or whatever, it's not really going to happen, because you're not going to help them, and you're probably going to be aware that it's going to be damaging to you as well to let that kind of energy into your energy field. Because the way our culture views sex is it comes from the ego. So it's all this kind of backwards and forwards and trying to ejaculate and pounding, and it's coming from the ego instead of the soul and the heart and the true self. So that's basically robs us of like 90% of the experience. So is this for everyone? And I just want to reiterate, like, this part, what we're talking about today, this is like fairly high level stuff. It's stuff that really I don't recommend playing with. I don't, I don't recommend doing without the preliminary exercises. The preliminary exercises are really important. So I just want to say, if someone watches a YouTube video or reads in a book and gets the idea that masturbating and squeezing a perineum to try to have a full body orgasm is a good idea, like, a lot of people have had harm caused to themselves by doing this. So I definitely recommend, like, to have a lot of respect and reverence for this energy, because it's true that what we're trying to do is get back into our original programming. But unless we've moved out of the way and we've got that relationship with the energy, the spirits, the organs, and so on, we can really end up, and the emotions I didn't say there, we can really end up causing ourselves problems. So it's a practice that is extremely powerful, but it requires awareness and discipline to implement into your life. And also, I say there, okay, it's not for everyone. And I think at some points in our life, at a certain point in my life, if people had explained this to me, I would just be like, what are you talking about? But when I got into it at the right time, that my soul called to take this next step into this level of relationship with myself, that was when it started to, I just wanted it and I needed it at that point, and that was when I was ready for it to come in and transform my life. So it also requires you take responsibility for your own development and step into your power. You need as well to be determined about the results that you want. When people are wishy-washy, it's really hard to teach them, and we can try not to be wishy-washy, but I think it takes a certain, relationship. I'm going to say like a relationship with the true self, because it was like what I said on Wednesday, that, very often when our soul says yes, the ego is going to stand up and then say, yeah, but no, because the soul will see the benefits of something. The ego will just see it in terms of what's the costs, and so yeah, it's very important that we really have that connection with soul, and we do this, this is all really, really based on love, based on pure love, connection with soul, soul connection. And that's what makes it different from, for example, most of the neo-tantra that's being taught, that it's not based on that. Most of it is not based on that love and connection with self, and also is not really understanding very scientifically about what's going on, which is why you have so many sort of unsafe experiences and traumas going on around so-called tantra. So you need to be able to follow instructions and implement and be serious about yourself. If you're going to allow self-doubt and fear to self-sabotage you, it might not be the best thing to mess around with. So there's some of the exercises, like the one we did with the inner smile, which are more like, let's say, like beginners level exercises. And pretty much anyone can do those exercises safely. When it comes to the more advanced exercises, if we're not going to create the discipline and take the responsibility in our lives, it's better not to do them. But I'm going to explain to you about them and how they work anyways today. So, sexual healing versus development. What I'm describing is the most powerful form of healing that is known to humanity. So sexual healing exists on many different levels. I'm going to explain that to you. But it's more than, what I'm talking about here is more than healing. So it requires you to move on from the classical stages of healing, where someone is doing something for you, and really take responsibility for yourself and your energy. A lot of people don't want to do this, and that's totally okay, because we're all at where we're at. This is for people who are willing to open their minds, stretch their paradigms, leave behind excuses, victimhood, and not enoughness, to step into their big and amazing authentic self. And that stage of, you know, people call the stage of being a victim and everyone shames it, but it's a really important stage to go through, but just not to get stuck in. So your ego is likely to step in and try and stop you. It will give you every excuse to stay little and remain in the programming you were given by society. You need to feel the soul calling to make the shift. And I think also when people go through any kinds of like big shifts within themselves, it's almost like if you imagine like we are like, you know, a house or something, and inside us is this little animal, you know, and then we're coming along and we want to actually take the old animal out and we want to put a new animal in there. The old animal is going to lash out, it's going to try to scratch, it's going to try and resist, it's going to try and stay there, it will try to attack the new animal that you're bringing in. So when we're aware about all of this stuff, which is actually psychology, even things like the fact we're just taught to lie to ourselves almost from day one and to kid ourselves about the reality we're in and the reality we're creating. When we actually see, I see, I'm doing that, you know, it puts us in a much, much more powerful position than when we're just kind of going along on that programming, when we're just operating on someone else's programming and we're living a life that just doesn't feel like our authentic life to be living in. So your reality, never forget that there's a huge amount of control we have over our reality, much more than we think. You know, I think when people say, oh, you create your reality, in a way, okay, there are things we can't control, but there's way more than we think we can control that we actually can. So the top of society who are always doing well do so because of their mindset. The rich countries are rich because of the education and the mindset, I'd say, of the people. You know, like, for example, in England, we have this school called Eton College where all the really rich people send their kids to, and most of the people in the government on all the parties, they've all gone to Eton College, and everyone's sort of criticizing these guys called Eton boys, you know, and okay, you know, we can criticize them or whatever, but even the difference is more to do with how they're taught to think and how they're taught to do things and the way they're taught to just put themselves out, you know. And well, I can go into that in a lot of detail, but the thing is, any one of us can actually learn to tap into that same energy. So when we believe that we aren't worthy, we don't have enough money, we aren't clever enough, the universe will back us up and show us that sorry, that was a mistake there. Yeah, if we're going sit there saying, oh, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough money, the universe will create that for us. Even if we're really, really rich, the same narrative can be happening unless we switch that narrative. This believing we are not worthy. You know, when people go to these expensive schools, the kids learn they're very worthy of everything, and they get this sense of entitlement. Again, another thing that people criticize, but we are all entitled. You know, we're all entitled to live a good life. We're all entitled to have our soul aligned life. And when we remember that and we really feel that and tap into that energy, we can have big shifts happening in our lives. So this is why religions tell us to have faith. We're brainwashed to be careful about anything. You know, so we're giving these examples of people gambling away all their money and so on, you know, but things like saving money, it's actually a stupid concept because people then just block the flow. I'm really sorry, I just typed that really, really badly. You know, I mean, one of my coaches, you know, he says this thing like, imagine if money is your girlfriend, if you're, you know, panicking and freaking out every time she wants to go out the house, down the shop or something, you know, you can't really expect her to come back. And the same thing, if you're grabbing onto it so tightly, how is it going to flow? You know, and I found having rituals, and obviously we want to have balance, you know, but having rituals actually around that, especially when we have healing that we need to do around money, around finances, around base chakra stuff, security, solar plexus chakra stuff, and so on. It's really important to remember these are all spiritual energies and that they flow. And the same beliefs around sexuality, juiciness, abundance, these are so deep-seated that we can hack, but we can hack the energy field and change them quickly. So all these beliefs were given men, often told they're going to hurt women, you know, or that feeling aroused or attracted to a woman is a bad thing. We being taught, you know, that if we are basically, you know, as women, if we kind of show our sexuality, we're asking to get raped and so on. So, and the cost when we actually don't do this stuff is huge. And it's like we end up just living in a life we're not happy in. And, you know, the cost is financial, but the cost is a lot of other things as well in terms of happiness. So the science of sex, because this is really a science and it can be repeated and got the same results again and again and again and again. So this isn't some generic neo-tantra group where you learn to open your heart and touch someone slowly, or maybe have sex with everyone there. And although it's an experience, it's not like going to a retreat where you then come home and wonder where the energy went. This is a way of life where you learn the science of the energy field, which includes sexual energy. It's a big part of it. And you master it so that you're no longer the victim of the circumstances of life. This is self-mastery in its purest form, because it allows you to take control of parts of yourself previously referred to as magic. That's actually most of your reality. So people were put to death for knowing this stuff because it scared people, especially women were put to death. And people have sent armies after this knowledge. So both Kublai Khan, the son of Genghis Khan, sent armies into the Wudang Mountains to take the Taoist scrolls. Even in the 20th century, the Emperor of Japan sent in his top general to try to steal some of the Taoist scrolls from the Wudang Mountains, and apparently they got one of them, but there's like hundreds of them or thousands of them or whatever, you know. So this knowledge was kept hidden for millennia, except to an elite few, until it recently became available to those of the public who are willing to challenge themselves, open their minds, and walk the path into their power. So this is like super elite knowledge. And I will just say, you know, Tantra is as well, but you get all these Westerners going, oh, I'm teaching Tantra, I'll show you how to stroke someone, which isn't really, you know, Tantra at all. But when we look at these elite knowledge, it was chosen to only be given to a select few for a good reason, because to most people, they don't have the maybe like they don't have the wherewithal to actually work with these energies. So it's something that's it's, yeah, when someone decides to get to they get to the point in their life where they decide to put this stuff into practice, is incredible, but it definitely won't work if someone does not have self-discipline. So I think I explained to you before who I am, and in terms of this Taoist knowledge I'm teaching, it's all coming from like my own journey and the studying I've done with the Grand Master Mantak Chia and other instructors of Universal Healing Tao, and I have a certification to be teaching it. And here's me with him. And as I mentioned before, that these are really powerful energies, and people have been harmed by malpracticing them. So they're taught in a specific way, in a specific order. It's always recommended to have a teacher with you as well, who can help you along on your journey, because otherwise maybe you won't get results, but even worse things can happen, and the energy can get blocked. It can amplify things you can't deal with. It can cause problems, which can include like physical problems, mental health problems. And this is really real stuff. Like I've talked to people who had no problem before, and then start trying to do this thing where people masturbate and squeeze their perineum, and ends up with premature ejaculation, ends up with back problems with the prostate. So it's really important to take this seriously, you know, and when we start reprogramming the body, it's fantastic, but we just need to do it little and gentle. So yeah, and that just says that everything we're covering here is relates to what I teach with my clients. And of course, get in touch if you want to know more. I will just add here that I actually have like a partial scholarship I'm offering to people that's literally only available until like Sunday night. So if you're interested in that, do like get in touch and let me know. It's never going to be like on offer again. So yeah, okay, all right, tell me, Angelina, have I answered your question?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'm just in a moment, hang on a sec. I just want to show something quickly. Yeah, it's like it's the source creative energy. I don't know how else to describe it. It's really what it is. And so yeah. Any questions? Anyone else? Any questions? So, okay. Oh, okay. I want to just show you this quickly, because what I really want you to understand here is that when we do this, this practices, and yeah, there's a lot of different ways of people teaching to work with sexuality, which is fantastic. But when you do this and you do this correctly and you bring everything into balance, everything balances out within your life. You know, this is the whole aim and purpose of it, is to create like total balance. Yeah, so the source creative energy is about all of who we are, but it's also about the sexuality is a big part of it, because we're created by the sexual energy. So just watch this. It's like a 2-minute video. Oh, hang on.
I would like to share with you my experience of working with Jade. I signed up for her course, the Multiorgasmic Toolkit, because I wanted to become a better version of myself. I wanted to be more connected with my body and to feel more pleasure. And in general, I'm interested in sacred sexuality, and I really resonated with Jade's content. So that's why I signed up. But honestly, I didn't know that I will get so much value. This course was really transformational and healing. I needed to go deep into myself, and there was a lot of work around our emotions, around removing the blockages. And week after week, layer after layer, I started to feel more connected to myself, and I started to feel the energy moving. I started to feel more alive and more energized. We got great tools to work with, like the 6 healing sounds, smiling to the organs, the microcosmic orbit. And it's about the practice and about the consistency if you want to see the results. There is a work to do, but it's definitely worth it because it will completely change your life. I also started to attract more abundance and to manifest things quickly. And there were also some major shifts in my life. The things that were not in alignment with myself just disappeared, and I started to attract new opportunities, new people. I am more in alignment with myself, and also my nervous system is more regulated. And Jade is a great coach and a great person. I can definitely recommend you to work with her. She has a lot of wisdom, but she's very natural, real, and humble. You just feel good in her presence, and she's always been there for us. So guys, if you want to experience some magic in your life, and if you are committed to your growth, this course will be really a good thing for you.
Yeah, so, and this, like, and I know, like, when people, and sometimes people have said to me, you know, oh, you're claiming, you know, people are doing this work with you and then they're getting more abundance in their life, or they're getting these other shifts happening in their life. And of course, you know, I can say it, but I think it's really helpful when we hear it from other people, because it's so real, you know. It's happened to me, but of course that's me, you know. But the fact is happening to all these other people. And just, you know, I love the way she says also things that didn't belong just kind of faded away, you know. And yeah, attracting the new people, the new right things in the life. And of course, like she said, yes, it's putting some work in. Absolutely, it's putting some work in, but it's putting some work in to create a life that's just a very yeah, just a much more flowing, balanced, easy place to be in, where things come a lot easier. So if we get back to our PowerPoint. Okay. So, oh, sorry, there's meant to be two things there. So this is just another one of my clients, and he says his Chinese doctor said he has the pulse and health of a professional athlete, and he attributes most of that to the course. Me, I do as well. You know, I do work out, I do fitness here, but I'm definitely not a professional athlete. But I had the same, and I even had clients that were like a little bit overweight and didn't exercise very well, ending up with like pulses like 60 beats a minute, which is a really good, like, healthy pulse. But yeah, I think the other one there I wanted to show you was just from the guy who I helped him to get in touch with his anger, and it basically saved his marriage, you know. And they had more, when he wrote me the testimonial, he was just saying we had more sex in the last 2 weeks than we did in the last 2 years, and now peace and harmony is back in the marriage. They wouldn't have to get divorced. So, okay, more intense orgasms. There we go. It's human nature to want mind-blowing orgasms. Like I said before, we're so pulled and drawn towards sexual energy, and this is a really sacred thing, but it's just the way we're experiencing it is not the way. It's like we've been programmed to experience it in a really like low level, low vibration kind of a way. So this is often derided as dirty or superficial, but truth is that this desire comes from the depths of our soul. Orgasm is a spiritual experience that brings us back to the very divine source energy that created us, back to our true self and away from the ego. It's a burst of magic in what is becoming an increasingly mundane, boring, and unmagical world. And one of the things about, you know, I put a post about porn on on Facebook again today, and I expected to get a lot of people get upset at me, which happened last time. So either all those people unfollowed me, or I've done a good job of educating people. I don't know which one it is, but you know, I feel like these things like conventional porn, which is quite different from, say, like 90s erotica, which is like a whole story showing a lot of emotions and connection, and then the sex as well. Whereas porn now, it's kind of like strips everything dry and just turns it into this like plastic thing. And so many people are approaching sex in such a mechanical way that it's just robbing it of its magic. And that's actually the most magical, amazing, incredible thing we have. And it's just getting stripped down and turned into just like nothing. So tension versus relaxation orgasms. I know that we looked at this before. If you heard of long tantric nights of endless lovemaking, multiple orgasms, and wondered how, that is probably because you've accepted the Western sexual norm of tension release orgasms as an orgasm. Tension orgasms, the type of orgasm that is popular in Hollywood and porn, are an orgasm that occurs in the very external and lower genitals. They are activated by the pudendal nerve and tension, which means that they push orgasmic energy out of your body, and that is why you only get one. Relaxation orgasms are when the waves of energy travel up your body and into your meridians and cells, and this is what tantric sex is all about. You know, I just feel like saying here, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday who does kind of similar stuff to me, and he's talking about sexual surrogacy and the benefits of sexual surrogacy. And I was actually saying, I don't believe it's generally a beneficial thing to do. Okay. People might say, well, why are you saying that? You know, surely it's helping people. The thing is, I don't think obviously it's usually men going for sexual surrogacy. I think there can be some extreme cases where it might be helpful for someone, but the problem isn't generally actually about having sex. It's actually about being able to get from the stage of like talking to someone, to connecting with them, to making, you know, a friendship, relationship, sexual connection, and then that turning into whatever the sexual relationship becomes. And people are actually blocked in this stage before even, you know, sex or kissing or anything would be on the table. I think it's actually like a huge problem now with guys, that they're actually blocked from literally being able to get into a healthy, you know, sexual relationship with someone, especially guys, but women too. But I do feel this is more adversely affecting men than women. What I'm talking about right now, and studies are showing now, actually, as there's been more and more porn, guys are actually having like less and less sex, and there's more guys, like, for example, like I talk to like guys in their 30s who are still virgins, and almost invariably you'll find there's like a lot of porn use going on, which I think it just doesn't encourage you. Part of it is that it doesn't encourage you to relate to women if you've got that. Secondly, if you go and relate to a real life woman in the way you see people relating in porn, you're unlikely to get a good reception. And the third thing, and it was what I really meant when in my post today, which is we have love energy in the heart and orgasmic energy in the sexual center. And when these two are not connected and they're not flowing up and down, this basically stops us from having like healthy and fulfilling sexual interactions. So pretty much every sexual problem is caused by a blockage in those two, between those two energy centers. And when we have a relaxation orgasms, it's because we've unblocked that energy. So relaxation orgasms are all about slow. But slow and mastery when it comes to sexual energy can be easier said than done. So in other words, when we've got all those energy blockages that will be putting pressure on us to act in sexual ways that's not in soul alignment, it's very difficult to slow down. So this is because most people have a lack of connection and knowledge of the nature of their sexual energy and spend most of their time repressing it rather than getting to know it. But of course, nobody knows any other way. Repressed emotions make sexual energy extremely volatile, and combined with the lack of mastery of sexual energy, most people end up being pulled into sexual experiences without awareness and consciousness. So this can be in one-night stands. This can also go on in long-term relationships. So in this case, the sexual energy takes over and it takes mastery over the person. And this is the state when people are just feeling like, you know, it can express in many different ways. And I think any of these traumas, when people say, oh, a trauma will always express as this, I think the truth is the trauma can express differently. You know, the same trauma or the same experience or the same blockage in one person can shut down the sexual energy, and the next person can cause them to be hypersexual, and the next person can make it difficult for them to connect with another person. And it's really interesting because when you talk to people who have some kind of sexual blockage, often you find they might get into a relationship, but after a certain period of time, months, years, it always falls apart because that's when the blockage comes up and they don't know how to sort of navigate around the blockage. So it stops us having love, having connection, having intimacy. It affects us sexually. It also can basically cause all these things like urges and frustration, which people associate having this sexual energy they need to release. There is another way. And I think a gentleman made a great question yesterday, and this is basically the answer. When you're looking at porn and masturbation to ejaculate, you're looking there at tension orgasms. What we're talking about here in Taoism and in Tantra is relaxation orgasms. When we have a relaxation orgasm and the energy comes into the body, it's actually, we are rejuvenating the body at the cellular level. When according to Taoism, we're going into this, according to Tantra, we're going into this state of enlightenment when we do this. So the autonomic nervous system, and this is like super, super important, okay? Your autonomic nervous system. Hey, do you know what the autonomic nervous system does? If you do, can you give me like a 2 in the chat? If you know, what does the autonomic nervous system do? Okay, so the autonomic nervous system is a function that we inherited from our ancestors that is designed to keep us safe in times of danger. Our lives have changed a lot over the millennium, but the autonomic nervous system has not. Okay, so basically a state of stress, it operates in these two phases, which are called the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Okay, this is relax and enjoy, and flight or fight. Okay, this was really, really important. If you look at our ancestors thousands of years ago, they actually had very relaxed and chilled out lives in general. But then a danger came, like a tiger, they had to run very fast. what the autonomic nervous system does is it regulates all the functioning of the body. It gives it all to the heart and lungs, so the person can run really fast, get up a tree or whatever, and get away from the danger. Okay, which is really, really good if you have that happening for 2% of the day. Okay, so the autonomic nervous system is regulating everything in the body, the digestion, the kidneys, the liver, the stomach. Because imagine if you had to sit there every minute and go, okay, I'm going to make my heart beat, I'm going to make my liver work, I'm going to get my kidneys to work. You know, we can't possibly sit there and have the capacity to do that. So much is happening in the body, all to do with the autonomic nervous system. But because of things like overstimulation, trauma, coffee use, stress, pressure, so much stuff of modern life, people are in semi-sympathetic mode for very much a lot of the time. So the sympathetic is the flight or the fight, and it's also the tension orgasm is sympathetic. The parasympathetic is the relaxation orgasm. Okay, and I'd highly recommend, if you're interested in what I'm talking about right now and you want to know more, I have a masterclass that explains this in really, really detail about ejaculations, clitoral orgasms, internal organs, and so on, and the autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve, and how it all works. So do be sure to reach out to me to get hold of that masterclass if you want to know more about this, because it's really interesting, fascinating stuff, how all this Taoism ties in with actually science as well. So a state of stress keeps us disconnected from the energy field and means that we can't access it. It also plays havoc with our emotions. Sexuality does not work properly in the sympathetic mode either. Imagine if you're running through the jungle and you're running away from a tiger. Is your sympathetic nervous system or your autonomic nervous system, is it going to prioritize lasting long in bed or getting an erection or having an orgasm for women? These are all problems relating on a certain level to the autonomic nervous system. Because if you go into bed with someone and there's flight or fight stuff going on, it's just going to cause havoc, things are not going to work properly. So breathing, and this is about the stages, okay? And I know yesterday someone had asked me, and this is the stages, breathing is key to all of this. First of all, it's an essential tool to hack your autonomic nervous system and bring yourself into a deep state of relax and enjoy. It can activate the diaphragms in your entire body, which is essential for health and also for the alchemy system as well. So there's 7 diaphragms, including the cervical diaphragm, the thoracic diaphragm, urogenital diaphragm, pelvic floor diaphragm. There's a few others as well. And actually, when we're in a relaxed state, these are all moving together and syncing together, but it's all dependent on the way that we're breathing. And breathing is actually the gateway to opening up your energy system and to entering into a deep state of consciousness, expanding experience with your body, your energy, and your soul. And this is all about sex, but it's about so much more than sex as well, because sex is about consciousness, it's about health, it's about creativity and everything. So we looked a lot at emotions, but it's important. And I love this word emotional wealth, because emotions are a wealth. Emotions are movements of energy up, down, forward, and to the center. Negative and positive need to be balanced as energies in your body. The most effective way to do this is to actually hack into the energies and keep them balanced as a daily practice. And emotions exist in our organs and sexual organs, as I explained yesterday. And sexual reflexology is the second step that you can use with yourself and a partner as deep layers of healing with pleasure. So here's the diagrams we saw yesterday. Feel free to screenshot those, of course. So yeah. Okay. Movement. Your body is an alchemical chamber and you need to know how to move it. Tension and stiffness block energy, and people who seem strong may actually not be strong. So a lot of professional sports people and bodybuilders, they get their tendons broken. They have to go on operations we're generally taught to overbuild muscles, but not to strengthen the tendons. This is where the energy actually travels. So if your tendons are weak, they're not able to, they're too tense, they're not able to channel energy. This is problematic. The same if your spine is blocked, it blocks your whole body. And Qigong is designed to strengthen your whole body and open up the flow. And having a Qigong Tai Chi practice is really important. So, energy activation. Activating your alchemical system with sexual energy has benefits that reach into every part of your life. The first benefit is a healing on a deep cellular level that reverses aging as well as optimizing your body. Increase of energy levels and focus, as well as better time management. Access to deeper levels of soul-aligned abundance, creative inspiration, activation of inner vision, and opening of your consciousness. So this is what the energy activation is all about. And meridian flow. It's essential to open up the meridians in your body. You can use the same skills of cultivation and transformation to move the energy through your body. First, start with Qi to open the meridians around the body, boost your immunity, and increase energy levels. Then you can start to move unaroused Jing through your body to feed to your organs and glands and to renew them at the cellular level. And later, aroused Jing can be moved about your system too. The final step is to move orgasms. And then you get your full body orgasms and orgasms anywhere that you want. So this is another layer to sexual healing, as well as genital reflexology, the opening up of the meridians. And then the orgasmic upgrade. Orgasmic energy is the most powerful life force energy that you have. It is also highly volatile energy, like petrol. Hence the warning that I gave at the beginning. The Taoist system is the most intricate and effective way to work with this energy. Before working with this energy, you need to practice and work with less volatile forms of energy. You need to learn to cultivate, move, transform, transmute, refine, and store energy. The process is also important because you need to clean out the blockages inside your body so that the sexual energy can flow. So this is really about activating the alchemical system within the body. And sexual energy is an amplifier that will amplify what is there inside you. And this is one of the big reasons we say, be careful. Because imagine, someone is like 1% creepy, or 1% weird, or 1% a pervert or something, and I'm saying this because this is real stuff, and this happens in so many different tantra groups and retreats, right? Because if you're 1% a pervert, okay, which probably everybody is, to be honest, but that's fine. It's just the 1% that's just hidden away. When you then start amplifying it with your sexual energy in an unconscious way, and suddenly that turns into like 20%, it's a big, big change. And that's why when you Google Tantra retreat or Tantra workshop, it's like most of them have just got sexual scandals. Like I'm a admin of a group about, it's called Tantra Not Trauma. That's literally been set up by people because so many people go to Tantra groups and Tantra workshops and come out traumatized. And you hear like every week, there's like multiple stories coming in about these different workshops and places, and people go to these and sometimes it might be a story like, oh, I went to ISTA and I wanted to learn to move energy, and all it was people having sex with each other, or which is fine if that's what people want, but he just didn't feel like he got the result. But many times it's like people feeling pressured or doing things they didn't want to do and coming out like just feeling really, really not good. And I mean, there's never been any allegations about this around Mantek Chia. I don't really know of allegations like this even going on within the people that he's trained, because of the way that we work with the energy step by step by step. So say with my clients, when we get to the part where just earlier, I was with with some of my lady clients, and we do this exercise where we take the energy out of our ovaries and we move it through the body, up the spine, into the brain, and then we start taking it into the organs and storing it. And this is one of the things that can really cause people problems, but I've never had problems with my clients just because we go slowly, step by step by step, each week, just adding to it very gently. And then it's never a problem when we start doing the more powerful exercises. So looking at sexual healing, this is another form of sexual healing. I think I've mentioned like 3 or 4 so far. So sexual healing starts with the most basic level of feeling the energy of love. So I was talking, I think, on Monday about the dantian in the heart and the dantian in the belly, but we can talk about the love center in the heart and the sexual center, which is at the bottom of the belly. And our programming, so the programming that first came from certain organized religions and patriarchy, taught us that sex and love was separate, and people were in marriages and actually being taught in marriage, because people were only supposed to have sex in marriage, that sex and love were separate. And it just has been so damaging and so harmful to society, this program. And exactly as I said in the post on Facebook today, that it's the same story coming from pornography, and most sexual liberation is still separating love from sex. Like I keep saying, that it's like they're sacrificing love on the altar of sexual liberation. And really, for healthy sexuality, we want both, and we want those both existing within our body, and obviously within a partnership we want both of them, because it's not just, you know, this isn't about morality, this is actually about our health and about our happiness. And this all starts with self-love. Quite literally, when our bodies begin to unblock, the meridian called the Chongmai that feeds the body with sexual energy starts to deliver the energy into our hearts. And when we start activating this self-love, it's such an incredible, powerful thing. We all know the huge healing effects of feeling love, feeling sensuality, vulnerability, and connection. But there is more to it than just that. When the sexual energy reaches our hearts, it starts to transform into a third kind of energy, which is a violet energy, that then starts to vibrate and resonate with the violet light in the universe. And this is another exercise I do teach clients, where we actually bring the sexual energy up into the heart and start creating this violet energy, which we spread around through the body. And as the energy starts to grow, it then starts to spread through our bodies and into our cells. It begins to vibrate our cells and return them back into our original programming. And this, like so many illnesses and diseases we get, things like cancer, this is all about the cells not being in their original programming. It's so important to just, it's the cause of disease, because of being separated from our authentic original self, our soul, and our original programming. And this is the source of dis-ease. So, deeper sexual healing. Sexual energy amplifies, and it will amplify your traumas and your pain. This can cause chaos in your life, even physical health problems, because it can amplify your blocks. It also can be really healing because it brings up your blockages and traumas to be healed, which you can do quickly and effectively if you've learned to work with the energy already. So that's a major reason why we do the emotional work first. And like, if you imagine, I'm sure like most people here have experienced getting in relationships with someone and a lot of emotions come up. This happens with a lot of people, and very many people cannot cope with the emotions, and then everything falls apart and the relationship goes quite toxic because people don't know how to process emotions. And this is just people in normal relationships not doing this work. The thing is, I do believe this is all divine and sacred, because when we are in our original programming, we're able to feel the energy, and we're able to give each other a safe space to heal. This is really, really important, that we're giving each other this safe space to feel. But when we can't give our own self that safe space to feel, how can we give it to other people as well? So it's really important when we do the work on ourselves, it's fine. We don't need to tell the partner to go off and do the work on themselves, because once we bring ourselves into balance, it brings the relationship into balance as well. So the deepest levels of these blockages live within our sexual organs. This is what genital reflexology is all about. Once that you have the skills to work with these energies within your body, you can learn to also work with these energies as they are present in your sexual organs for the deepest clearings that you can do. And this level of clearing works once the external is cleared enough to allow the deepest traumas to release. So Taoist sexual practices, and these are like really kind of nerdy, you know, through Taoist practices, you can start to recycle unused hormones that can even cause illness and use these to rejuvenate your body at the cellular level. And like when we hear, like I was saying earlier, I think we hear prostate, and then it's got to be cancer or prostate problem. Nobody's saying anything nice about the prostate. You know, you hear cervix, cancer, abnormal cell. Like this is all we're almost hearing. It's like being programmed into us, all this like negativity around the sexual organs. But the energies are blocked around the heart, leading to breast cancer, and blocked around the sexual organs, which leads to all kinds of problems in the pelvis and cancers as well. And when we start to unblock literally the hormones through like physical massages, and I mean, it's kind of funny, like one of my friends was like, oh, this is way too much, but it's very nerdy how we go in Taoism, like you make 36 circles this way, 24 that way, you know, it's very nerdy and precise, but it's like kind of understanding a machine on a deep level so you can learn exactly how to balance everything out. So when this balances your hormonal system, it eliminates menstrual problems and optimizes the experience of sexual pleasure. So many women struggle with period pains or different symptoms around the period, but actually through these practices, you can just eliminate that and make the period much lighter as well. And you can also wave goodbye to your lube as your pussy naturally flows with wetness, as your energetic flow is optimized. And I would just say there's definitely like a relationship between the physical, you know, the lack of flow of blood, and the emotional and the energetic. And guys also can say adios to concerns about performance issues as you get the hard cock of your youth back, but you eliminate sexual frustration and unwanted urges. So you're able to connect with the pleasure you deeply desire and deserve as well, but without those negative feelings that are so closely associated with sex. And of course, if we go to someone else wanting to have sex, and what we're doing is we're actually coming from that place of like frustration or needing to release, we're actually just dumping negative, bad energy onto people. And we can't really be expecting that relationship to be healthy or sacred. So through moving energy, you can start to have any type of orgasm you want in any part of your body. And pleasure becomes your tool to heal and to grow. So orgasmic healing. In Tao practices, we move sexual energy from the sexual organs, like the ovaries and the testicles, into the rest of the body. Sexual energy can be worked with in the form of hormones, aroused energy, or orgasmic energy. It is essential to start by working with the least volatile energy and then work up the scale. Once that you develop these skills to move these energies, you can safely move orgasms up the center of your spine and into your brain, and then into your internal organs. And it is best done by developing and honing your skills to work with your intention and move energy. So this whole stuff about squeezing your perineum and trying to move the energy up, I think that's not good at all for like Western people. We have too much tension and stress in the body. When we squeeze the perineum, adding more tension and stress is only amplifying blockages. What we actually need to do is relax, open the body, and learn to use our intention to move the energy. And it's a very powerful thing to do, and a very, very powerful place to be. And once you do this, there's very little you cannot actually humanly achieve when you can move energy with your intention. It's a very powerful place to be. And this isn't about general moving of energy, because I hear people say, oh, but I've had a lot of Reiki, but it didn't heal my sexual problems. Of course it didn't, because it's not addressed at the sexual. This is, Reiki just looks at energy quite generally. This looks at energy. There's the different types of energy that I mentioned, the Jing energy in its different forms, the Qi energy, the Shen energy, the Tao energy, and other forms of energy that we have too. It's about understanding these different energies, where they move, where are the energy centers, and just activating that. And that actually brings us back into our original programming. And obviously, like I keep reiterating, really important to do the emotional work for, as Camilla before, as Camilla was talking about in the testimonial, it's like 5 weeks of this emotional work that's really, really essential. Once you've done that emotional work, which clears out a certain amount of detritus, you're then able to start bringing the sexual energy in and just clearing more and more and more, and just bringing yourself to a more activated and more refined level. So healing with a partner, once you got there, sex will never be the same again. In fact, you'll look back on what was once great sex and you will cringe. Happened to me. So the rubbing of genitals to feel pleasure with friction is inevitably unsatisfying. So it's like people try to chase pleasure, whereas in reality, and it's exactly the same as guys, yeah, like don't, in a sense, it's masculine to go after the woman, but there's chasing, right? Whereas there's seducing. And this is what you want to do with the pleasure, is you want to seduce it to you. You want to create this nice, beautiful, sexy energy field and seduce it in. So once you can harness energy, you'll begin to make love as a conscious act of healing and activation. And I'll just say that I've heard from clients, especially guys, men, yeah, you know, that when they worked on this energy and perfected the energy field, they just started to attract in partners that they never had believed they would have such a person as a partner. And then they just came to them because what you've done is you've created this really attractive energy field, but also taken away the blockages that stop you and get in the way from you getting into the place where you're able to be connected. So sharing this with another person takes your energy cultivation to a new level. Once you can harness energy, you'll begin to make love as a conscious act of healing and activation. So it's almost like the negative and positive in the battery and sending the energy around. Your bodies both become these alchemical chambers together, and you can use lovemaking to heal, to manifest, create, and grow together. And this is alchemy, not chemistry, and you will get bored. And when people talk about, oh, is there chemistry? And honestly, like a lot of chemistry is actually trauma bonding. And it wears out. You get bored of it. You get sick of it. Alchemy, the chemistry is gone. And people say, where does the love gone? It's not really the love that's gone. It's the sexual energy, because people did not start practicing alchemy. And then it all just went and disappeared at some point. So okay, this has been a brief run through of probably some ideas which some of you may find are new to you. Some of you are or have been my clients and probably will not be finding it's new for you. So I'm curious, like, how do we have any questions around this? Tell me, did this make sense?
This made sense to me.
Yeah.
I like the relaxation orgasm. It's just a different approach to, or a different experience for people doing this work in touch with the energy.
Yeah. And you know, I think someone asked about men not ejaculating, and this is what you're actually having, the relaxation orgasm. And I know I explained it to you guys and you're saying it makes sense, but if you say to an average person, hey guy, dude, what do you think about not ejaculating anymore? He's just going to be like, what? You know, unless you find some really repressed person, probably, but that's not good for him to be repressing the sexual energy either. So this is a new experience, and I think like we can understand it intellectually to a certain point, but then also there's a point where we are just you know, you have to experience it to feel it. And you know, like I was mentioning before, in terms of like with my partner when we first met, and he'd never imagined that a guy could have sex and not ejaculate. He just thought it never happened or whatever, or if it did, it was like a failed sex or something, you know. And many, I mean, we use a term like in English, I don't know if in America it's the same, we say he finished, I finished. The guy says I finished, he had his ejaculation. Like that's what the sex is about. I mean, I've heard now people in London now, I mean, and I've heard guys saying this to each other, we mustn't use the word finished anymore. We've got to think about her orgasm too. And it's amazing that people are waking up to this, you know. Where this is just bringing it into a level where it's like so deep and so tangible what we can get into and what we can experience. And it feels amazing, you know, when the orgasm starts moving up your body and you start feeling in your body, it feels just absolutely amazing. But it's much more than, you know, just about the feeling. But I suppose the idea with this, like if you look at, you know, religion, especially if you look at, for example, Catholicism, which has really fetishized the whole Jesus on the cross and the suffering, and you know, there is so much about the fetishization of suffering. Whereas with this, the basic idea is, okay, look, we're going to suffer. Yeah, suffering happens, right? It's not something we need to chase. And people say, okay, suffering makes you a better person, but the aim of suffering isn't to chase it, you know. When things get into flow and the energy gets flowing, it feels good. We feel good. Things start going right in our life. And this is about an energy, about the world, you know, and the energy coming back into balance. And this is where we really like want to be, in this state of just experiencing, you know, experiencing the flow. And when this, you know, because when we reconnect the sexual energy and the love energy, it's like we have this, you know, we do it first on the spiritual level, then we go into the physical level, then we go into the energetic level and the emotional level. So we work with it on these different levels as well. It's not just, you know, even when people say like one's kind of sexual energy, there's actually many different types of it. And when you learn how to understand them and use them differently, yeah, it's just a pretty cool thing. And it's just very interesting how the benefits of it really are, like, yeah, they're really big and profound and huge. So, yeah. So, any more questions?
I thought it was interesting when you said a lot of chemistry is trauma bonding, because I guess it's the love versus lust situation.
Yeah, I mean, because we can get really sexually attracted to people who are not suitable for us, especially if we are have a lot of trauma. And I think, you know, nowadays we're encouraged to let's say to you know, people talk about, oh, you should have sex by the third date and so on. And, you know, in the old days, this wasn't generally what people do. They might court each other for years. Like, I mean, one of my friends, her grandparents met in a gulag in Russia. Yeah, can you imagine? And they spoke to each other through this hole in the wall for 7 years without seeing each other properly. And then finally, in the end, they got married. Yeah. And it is, you know, you think about people complaining, oh, I've been on the third date and I bought her so many meals and I still haven't had sex, you know. You kind of think like, you know, I mean, there's a dating coach I follow who's a male dating coach who teaches women about dating. It's really, really interesting, actually. I find what he says, because he is saying to women, look, yeah, guys today, they're a little bit like, he's basically not using the language I use, but he's basically talking about the way that guys are programmed to behave in these really like low level ways, and kind of teaching women ways to activate the guy, but through you know, through yeah, you know, more like psychology or something like that. But one thing he says really important is take time, get to know someone. You know, I think like getting to know someone on a level of like kind of like friendship, you know, creating a connection, or in the old days they called it courting, right? Didn't they? You know, when people say dating, we think dating can mean like just casually having sex, but he says, actually, this is really important. If you go in with the guy and just have sex really quickly, you're likely to mess everything up. And it's like, what he's talking about is you actually have to get to the point with the guy where you've activated enough of his energy so that it's coming up into his heart, and his heart is starting to activate. Because actually, something I didn't mention here is when we talk about the heart center and the sexual center, actually, as the women, we are based in the sexual center, the man in the heart center, but at the same time, it's the opposite, because we need to open the guy's heart and he needs to open us sexually, if that makes sense. You know how everything is a contradiction, right? You know, but the yang energy is in the heart. So if we have sex too quickly, it's never going to leave the time enough for his heart to open, basically. That's what this guy is saying. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it definitely plays in with, you know, what we experience. And something I heard from one of the Tao instructors some years ago was, you know, she was saying before in the past, she felt that you know, she'd get sexual energy, and then you just start kind of unconsciously having sex with someone, like everybody does. Whereas when you're doing the Tao practice and then you're cultivating and bringing up the energy, you can actually create a really beautiful connection with someone, where it's not just going in and having sex. And maybe it will turn out that it's for the best that you guys never have sex. But the point is, you created this beautiful alchemy together through this connection. Someone asked his name. His name is Matthew something, and I can't remember the last name. But if I remember it, I'll let you know. But yeah.
Well, I guess a follow-up question, it may be difficult to gauge. Well, when is the appropriate time frame broadly to where it's more appropriate to engage for both parties involved?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think in a way you can't say, you know, you can't say a time. And the thing is, when you consider the most massive people is at such a low level of consciousness as well, that they're going to be like, oh, what, you didn't have sex with me today? Okay, I'm never going to sex with you. You know, that's how a lot of people are, right? They're just looking for that instant release, because they have so much blocked sexual energy. They're just desperate to get it out anywhere they can, you know. So Panda, what do you, sorry, my dog is just doing something a bit that looked a bit dangerous. Okay, it's all right. She was climbing under the glass table in a way that looked a bit. No, it's not Matthew Hussey. I was just thinking of Charming, but Matthew Charming is my friend. It's not Matthew Charming. So sorry. Yeah, you know, a good amount of time, like, you know, a friend of mine, she says it takes like 3 months to know someone. Oh, I think the dog wants to go outside. Go on out. She likes to sit next to me when I'm doing these. When I'm doing these. But you know, she says 3 months is a good time to get to know someone. You know, other people say 6 months. You could do, the thing is, the longer you get to know someone, if you both have conscious intention and you're practicing alchemy and you're building more and more energy, you're just going to create like a more and more powerful relationship by waiting for longer.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that people are like, you know, I've seen people saying, like, say on Facebook, like, oh, you should just have sex when you feel like it. That's sexual liberation. And, you know, on the other hand, you could say having mastery of your sexual energy is sexual liberation as well. You know, I mean, I feel much more sexually liberated now. I actually understand it, and it's not just this kind of frustration that's mindlessly driving me. So yeah,
I agree. That's a misunderstanding in the culture, because that's sexual irresponsibility with your energy if you just do it in the spur of the moment, knowing it's magnifying the sexual energy in itself magnifies, and you don't know what you're magnifying because you just met this person. Kind of,
I mean, there's a blog.
gamble.
Yeah, there's a blog I read by this American guy. Again, I don't remember his name, but he was talking about he was going from city to city. I don't think he might have been a musician. He was having sex with everyone in different cities. I don't know. I guess maybe I don't know people that do that, but I guess, you know,
Oh yeah, that's common in America. Oh yes.
Yeah, okay, it's common in America. So he's met this woman, he's gone to her house, right? You know, he said he's having sex with her, or he's taking the clothes off. He's never said to the woman, what do you want or whatever, but he kind of presumed that she wanted. Okay. And then at the end of the sex, she just turns around and goes to him, you just raped me. Yeah. And he's just like, what? Yeah. And he said he completely couldn't fathom what she just said, because he said, well, he never asked her, but he presumed all along the way everything was fine, And then he was like, oh my God, he couldn't understand. He was really, really confused. He was quite upset as well. They could see the woman was upset. He stayed there trying to comfort her sort of for the next 7 or so hours, and he's just gone off, and he's thought, and the first thing that kind of came to his mind was, I never asked her, what did she want, right? Obviously, though, I mean, and this is something I teach my clients as well. Someone might be like, yes, I want it, but they're not coming from an empowered place. They might be fawning. It's very, very common. There's so many women that will just let people do things to them, including their partners or whatever, and they don't want it, but they just figure it's easier to let the person do it than to actually be able to, than to actually sort of argue. Because if you have this guy with all this pent up sexual energy, and then you're maybe giving him feedback, which he takes as a criticism or whatever, there's a lot of volatile, and I think a lot of men don't understand the experience of women there as well. And then like in terms of so he's then gone off, and he realized, I need to start asking women and talking to them, and then he started kind of developing, where the woman says yes, and he goes, yeah, but are you sure you mean yes? And he starts asking her more questions and getting to know her, and then it turns into these 2-hour interviews, which where he's asking her all this stuff, finding out about her traumas. Is there another partner who's going to get upset, and so on and so forth. He starts more and more getting to know women and getting to understand women. And he was like, wow, I never realized this thing that, and many, many men wouldn't realize, they would think, well, I want it, so she must want it too, or even like someone I know that, I kind of called him out for he was saying a lot of women are flaky, right? And I mean, what do you mean flaky? And he goes, oh, they act like they want sex, but then they just at the last minute, they kind of pull out or change their minds or whatever. And that's really like that mentality, isn't it? It's like this kind of backwards old mentality that like, it's so intricate, isn't it? And the thing is, a woman might be like, yeah, and he says this thing, and I think it's so true. Women, we love sex. We love sex way more than guys. Okay. There's been this myth perpetuated that men like sex more. It's completely untrue. It's just that we have a higher standard and we want better sex. Okay. And he talks about how it happens that like, when guys are getting more desperate for sex, they're getting less good in bed. They're treating the women less good. Then the women are like backing off more. There's less women wanting to have sex. Then you get this kind of like lack, going on, where the women are more going like, oh my God, the sex is so bad, I don't want any of it. And then the men are like more and more and more desperate, as you get this scarcity thing going on, which I think it can happen with anything, it can happen with, when you have recessions, that's what's actually going on. It's just a sudden scarcity mindset comes in, as well. And so, I mean, it was a really, really good article. I'm going to try and find it actually, and maybe like post it in my Telegram group. If you guys are in my Telegram group, I'll post it in there. And I mean, he was still going around having all these one-night stands with people, which I think when you're cultivating energy, a lot of people find isn't appropriate. But the fact that he actually sits down and he starts talking, he starts educating himself about women, he starts learning, and then he was saying he was having like way, way, way better sex. He was finding the more he was asking, the more, that he was having like better sex basically. And it just improved his life a lot. But he said it was a pretty big shock when this woman just turned around and goes, you just raped me. He never expected it. But and he tells like loads of other guys about it, and most of them are like, what, that's lame to ask for consent, and it just goes to show how out of touch people are with sexuality, that they can't say, what do you enjoy, what would you like this, people can't say that. It's like they're so out of touch with sexuality. And the same with emotions, that some people might even say, they're in a sexual experience and someone talks about something emotional, like, oh, don't talk about that because you're putting me off, and people are so kind of desperately, because they're so thinly attached to their sexual energy, and they're desperately just trying to basically just keep some kind of arousal and get something going on while they're chasing this energy, and the energy is just dispersing instead of them pulling it towards them, that they're just, it's just, and then people just have this increasing numbness, increasing inability to connect with people, to feel love, like more anxiety, things sexually not going, and it ages the body, it impacts the health when we don't have this vitality of the sexual energy within ourselves.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it's the culture is like really different here, how fast people move. And I move slow. And I feel like I get like teased for that. It's like people think I'm naive, and I think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Once you understand sexual energy, the full scope of everything we've been discussing over these past 3 days, is not naive at all to take your time, but it's so different from the masses. It's such a different lifestyle.
Yeah. And I mean, I made my partner wait. Obviously, he's a certain type of person, but he told me later he really appreciated that I made him wait.
Sorry.
He
Yeah,
really,
yeah, I like that the communication breeded a better sexual experience, even if it was a one night stand, because then I feel like a communication is still a level of intimacy instead of assuming.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember one time I was seeing this guy. It was just at the beginning when we were seeing each other, and it was the first time we were in bed together. And he kind of go like he was going to have sex, and I said, "Oh, I actually don't feel like having sex right now." And do you know what? The guy was so relieved. He was really, really happy because he felt like he had to do it, and it was almost like this mechanical thing he didn't really want to do, but that he thought was expected of him. And then he didn't, and basically, yeah, and he was actually quite happy. So I think we as women, we can be sitting there thinking, oh my God, if and I'm not saying there aren't guys that have this certain energy, but there's other guys that actually will be perhaps quite relieved if we say, hey, let's just cuddle or something. Because guys can have a lot of anxiety and performance anxiety about sex, because guys are very objectified, as well. So
That's just to be clear on what you want, because they might want the same thing.
yeah, and I have to say I've pretty much only had appreciation, with not just sexually, but when I'm very clear about what I want to people, and obviously not everybody's good. Some people, when they never heard it before, they might be a bit like, but generally I had people be really appreciative to me, that I say, even if I'm having a friendship with people and I express what do I want, what are my boundaries and so on, people are like, wow, oh my God, wow, you're so clear, so yeah.
Oh, so it's all about having a better relationship with ourselves, knowing what we want,
Yeah.
oh, have a better relationship with others on all levels, right?
And yeah, and this comes back to the trauma bonding thing as well, which is like, if there's so much traumas and we're acting out of traumas, then we're not doing what we authentically really want to do, you know.
Mm.
So that's why we need to heal our own traumas, because then we know what we want, and once we know what we want, we're gonna get it. We can get it, once we know. So yeah.
So when people are trauma bonding, it's more spontaneous, or it's more like
Like
re-
it can be like a really strong chemistry. It's not that all chemistry is trauma bonding, but it can be. And I think it's definitely something to watch out for if you feel a very strong chemistry with a person. It's just like take a bit of time and really like feel into what's going on.
that makes sense.
Mm.
as far as healing with a partner, do you think that's also mutually setting an intention before you go into the act?
It's the thing is there's like really like nerdy precise ways of doing it when you do it in the Taoist way. I mean, any sex can and should be healing, right? You know, and I think also it's about like the dynamics of the partner. You know, I do think talking about things. In fact, I remember at one point my partner was saying to me, hey, should we go to a sex shop and buy some accessories? And I was like, you know what? I don't feel a need. Yeah, I said, I'm feeling quite happy. I'm feeling quite satisfied. I'm not feeling a need for accessories. And then we talked a little bit, and then we actually decided to start having what we call like a consent conversation or a pleasure conversation, you know, because ultimately that's what you want in the consent conversation, to find out what gives each other pleasure. And then it was like, it was really nice because we were then, it was like almost like every time we were meeting, it was like we were meeting again for the first time. Yeah, I know I'm still recording. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's just a journey. It's such a fun journey, and there's so many resources around. But I think like in terms of what I'm describing here and what I'm talking about here, it's something that's a very, very deep way to go into it. That, you know, this kind of like Taoist way to go into it. It's very unique and it's very deep. And I think the Taoists, like, they studied and studied about the body and the energy, and they really understood it like so well. And I think they present it in a very like pragmatic way that's easy to understand and work with, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all about building a healthy relationship with your sexual energy. And I call it the family of sacred sexuality is completely different than that sex education we get, which a lot is little to none for most people.
It's dry as well, and the thing is, it can build and cause a lot of fear around sex and sexuality that is not helpful as well. So yeah. Okay, guys, so this has been so fantastic, and Angelina, I look forward to being more connected with you in the future, and other people too. Let's all keep in touch, right? I think we all can talk to each other here. So yeah, if you're interested in joining in January, guys, like I have a partial scholarship with like special offer going on right now to work with like some of my group programs, that if you contact me about it, like it's literally available up until the 31st. So do be sure to kind of reach out today or tomorrow and we can chat about it. All right then.
Okay. Is that best to ask on what, like send you a message on WhatsApp?
Oh yeah, if you want to know, Angelina, send me a WhatsApp. We can chat tomorrow. I got time.
Okay.
All right then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.